get it ready. All right, well, thank you for coming to our presentation on Don't Be a Monster of a Roommate.
So maintaining harmonious roommate relationships, there's some things that you can do. The first is practice courtesy and have mutual respect for the person or the people that you're living with. Try your best to use open communication versus hiding some things that you're feeling. Trying to be as open and honest as possible. Respect the boundaries of your roommates. Both of your boundaries or all of your boundaries might look a little bit different, but respecting each of those individual boundaries and what they ask of you. Don't be a borrower, so don't take your roommate things without asking. It's always best, to ask them first if you want to borrow something of theirs and wait for a response versus waiting until after you have already borrowed something and then being like, hey, I borrowed this. It just, again, shows that respect to your roommate and is that open communication. Keep your space clean. This is really important if you have shared living spaces or even in a dorm room. Your areas might butt up to each other, so trying to keep that space as clean as possible to respect those other roommates that you might share it with. Share your interests. You might not be best friends with your roommates or have a lot in common, but trying to find something interest that you guys can share to do together. So maybe that's you have a TV show you like to watch or a favorite food that you like to cook or something like that, to find an interest that you both can share and do something together. Learn to negotiate. You might have different views, different perspectives, different boundaries, but trying to find that middle ground of negotiating between what you want and what they want, to try and make everybody kind of happy in like a win-win situation. Be willing to change or compromise. That kind of goes with negotiating. Living with others, you might have to give a little or take a little in different areas. So trying to learn to maybe change some of the things that you might have done your way to compromise to make it work for both of you in those living spaces. Look for other friends. Your roommate does not have to be your best friend. And sometimes, with random roommates, it works out that maybe you guys aren't the best of friends or have a lot in common. And maybe you are great friends, but it's also important to have friends outside of your roommates, to expand, to get out, to do something different, and then have fun. Not your whole life, you might not have roommates. So learning to enjoy the small things and having fun along the way is really important.
So just some quick roommate communication tips here. So be prepared. So when you're going to talk to your roommate about something that's really important to you or something that maybe is bothering you, be prepared. Know what you're going to talk about. Know what points you want to get across. So that way when you are talking to them, you're not at a loss for words or anything. Next is to be clear and concise with what you're saying. Don't lead with ambiguous statements or just kind of hypothetical kind of situations. Be clear and direct on what's bothering you or what you would like from your roommate or something like that. Be curious. It's a good practice to be curious, and when you're talking to someone, find out their side of the story. Find out what's a solution you both can come up with. Be honest. Tell your roommate what honestly is bothering you. If there is something bothering you, a great communication tip is to be honest about it. So this kind of goes back to being clear and concise. Be honest with what you're saying. Don't lie to make things sound better. This will only cause more issues. Be flexible. This is a great one to keep in mind when communicating with others. Yes, you want to get your point across. Yes, you want to be clear and honest, but also be flexible in some of those results that you come up with or some of the compromises you make. Just being flexible and willing to hear what they have to say too is always helpful. Be solution focused. When there is like a roommate conflict and you're trying to talk to them about that, being solution focused is always important. We want to make sure that when we're talking about something super important, that there is a goal in mind, that we do have an outcome that we want to see fit. And if there's compromises that have to come before that solution is reached, then that's part of being flexible. And then finally, one of the last great tips we have is to say it in person, not over text. Text messages, can um, be void of emotion and feeling and not really get the point across the way you want to. Maybe the roommate might read your text message wrong or not understand. But when we say it in person, they can see that emotion, they can see those feelings, and they can understand you better and ask questions along the way. So points usually get understood better and across when we talk it in person than rather over text.
Yeah, so communicate in a healthy way. Here's some more things. So talk to your roommate directly when something is bothering you. I know sometimes that can be really hard, that confrontational piece to bring up something to your roommate, but it's really important to talk about them directly versus maybe going and saying it to your other friend that it's bothering you, because the only way to get that resolved is to talk to the person directly. And when you do that, be direct and clear about what is bothering you. Don't try, and push it under the rug or something, or make it really vague. Try and be direct and as clear as possible, so that way there's no room for misinterpretation or for them to get the wrong message. But also trying to put that off in a kind way but also being clear and direct while you do that. Develop a win-win situation. This is kind of like that compromise piece we talked about earlier. Not everything may be exactly the way you want it to go or how you want it to be, but trying to develop a situation that you both can seem part of it that you're happy with can be a win-win situation. And then respect each other's differences. We're all different. We all have different views. Maybe the way our other roommates behaved, we're living with a family, can be very different. So trying to accept those differences and work together to try and find a way of living that works best for both of you and that makes you both happy, or even all of you if there's multiple roommates.
So now we're going to go over some common issues that a lot of roommates deal with, and then some ideas for resolving them. So the first one we have here is messiness of shared spaces. Some tips that we have here is have a conversation about cleanliness of shared spaces. So a lot of times when we're living in a house with other roommates, our shared spaces, this might be the kitchen, a bathroom, a living room, maybe even front entryway. These are shared spaces. These are places all the roommates go to. And if it's really like a messy spot that some of the roommates don't like, but some are not bothered by, we need to have a conversation about this and talk about, the importance of having a cleanly shared living space. Keep in mind too that their own room can be messy if they want. So if some people don't like cleaning up after themselves, let them keep that mess in their own room, but then have those shared spaces a little bit cleaner. Watch your tone of voice. Be non-judgmental and do not state things in an accusing manner. So this really kind of gets to the point of communication, talking to your roommate about those messy spots. Just watch your tone of voice and try to be non-judgmental. Don't blame them for, all the mess all the time. Kind of take some of that responsibility too, or just kind of go about it in a way that's a little more kind and hopefully understanding. And then another tip here, just to share the responsibility. It is a shared space, so it should be a shared responsibility to clean up. Volunteer to do half the cleaning or to help them with some of the chores that maybe are designated for them. Splitting up, they take one bathroom, you take the kitchen, working together in the living room or something like that. That might be a great way to go about sharing this responsibility.
Yeah, so the next is taking without asking. The first is do talk about boundaries, ahead of time. So maybe when you move in, trying to establish those boundaries of like, these are my personal things and those are your personal things. And then maybe you have some things that are shared, like maybe a vacuum that you would all share, to vacuum your rooms or vacuum the living room, or wherever else you need vacuum or swept in the apartment or house. But maybe there's some personal things that you'd rather keep to yourself, that are personal to you, that you can talk about. These are my things. I would gladly let you use them as long as you ask ahead of time. and then that should be no problem as long as you respect them and use them with care. That's important, because then you're clear and direct about what those expectations are. And it's easier to have that conversation before things start versus, once it's been going on a little while. So encouraging them to ask before taking or using something of yours can be very helpful in a way to guide that dialogue with your roommate.
So leaving the house during stay-at-home orders, this one's in particular to some of the COVID-19 stuff that we're dealing with right now. With some of our great tips here, talk with them about your concerns. Your roommates are not mind readers. They're not going to know if you're concerned or if something's bothering you. So you need to talk to them about these issues that you're seeing or worried about. Advise them to wash any items they purchase before putting it away in the cupboards or in the fridge or anything like this. This really kind of helps cut down on contamination, spreading of germs, things like that. And we really want to be conscious of that. If one of your roommates is concerned that, groceries might carry a lot of germs on them right now, then ask them to wash those things or let them air out in a sunny spot before putting them away in the cupboards. And then remind them the importance of staying home and keeping gatherings small and limited. According to the governor, right now they have these stay-at-home orders, they have these restrictions on large groups simply for our safety and to help stop that spread. And so just remind them, these are rules created by legislative lawmakers, and so it's just a reminder too for them.
Yeah, so the next is splitting up costs. Excuse me. Sometimes with roommates, you might share things like maybe the electric bill or the water bill or something like that. There are lots of payment sharing apps, like Venmo and other ones out there where you guys can easily pay each other for, whose ever name is under the bill. And you can also send reminders like, hey, the bill's was due 5 days ago, and just send them a friendly reminder like, hey, you owe me $15 or something like that. And it's an easy way to send them money quick in case you don't have cash on hand or something like that. Another thing you could do is develop a payment calendar so each person can visually see when the payments are due. So maybe, your rent is due on the 4th or something like that, or by the 4th. So then you have that on a calendar, and maybe your electric bill is due on like the 15th. Having it on a calendar so that each roommate knows when the bills are due and when their portion of the bill should be paid by then. And that's a way, so they can all check it, it's all in a community space, so you can see that each month, so they don't have to worry about sending those reminders, or asking for money frequently.
The unexpected third roommate is another common issue that we see sometimes. What we mean by this unexpected third roommate is that friend who tends to stay over a lot, sleeping on the couch or just always in the kitchen or something like that. So that's what we mean by the unexpected third roommate. Some tips we have for this one: say something sooner rather than later. The longer you let that third roommate linger about, sleep on the couch, the harder it's going to be to ask them to leave. And so saying something sooner rather than later is definitely going to be your best bet at addressing this issue if it's bothering you. Another one, keep track of how often they are staying the night. A lot of times people or one of your roommates might have a friend crash on the couch or, sleep on an air mattress or something like that. For one night, it might not be a problem, but if it continues to happen, it might be worth tracking how long they stay. If it's every single weekend, like keeping track of that too, might just be helpful when talking to that third roommate or to your regular roommate about the frequency of their visits. Revisit the rules of your lease. A lot of times with certain apartments or houses, there is a limit on how many people can be in your house or sleeping there. Same goes for in the dorms. There's usually a rule about guests, how long they can stay, how often they can come, things like that. So if your roommate and that extra third roommate isn't listening to you, you can always revisit these rules just to kind of point out like, hey, this is what we signed on to agree to, and just go off of that written agreement. And then be clear with your roommate that you do not welcome unexpected overnight guests. If this unexpected roommate guest is coming during the weekday, distracting you from studying or getting a good night's sleep, it's perfectly okay to be clear with your roommate that you're not excited about them being here. You don't want them in this space, maybe because it's distracting or they're using something of yours or things like this. You know, being direct and clear with your roommate about that is important to help kind of clear up this issue.
Yeah, the next one could be noise complaints. So the first thing is to say something. Often your roommate not realize they're being loud, or maybe they're watching a movie and they might not realize how loud their movie is really getting. So trying to say something, kind and gentle and direct to them. Maybe simple requests for an explanation could be helpful, like, can you please shut the cupboard doors more quietly in the morning? There's your request, and then the explanation. They wake me up. This kind of tells your roommate, like, yes, I want it to be a little bit more quieter, but here's the reason why. It's either distracting me this way, it's distracting my sleep, maybe their studies. So trying to give them the explanation can be really helpful. And then remind them of quiet times. I know in the dorms and certain apartment complexes, there are quiet times. Generally those run at night. So maybe like 10 at night to 7 in the morning or something like that. Generally when people are sleeping. So it's a little bit quieter during those times. And then also maybe if you're in the dorms, they have extended quiet hours during dead week, like right before finals. So people can really get their studies in a peaceful and quiet place to get their work done that needs to be done. So maybe they might need a little reminder of that, but also again, be direct about what your complaint is, and then also try to be gentle and kind the way you deliver it.
All right, so here we have some just focusing on what you can control. There are many negative thoughts right now that might be swirling through your mind, especially if you're having roommate issues or problems with communicating with them. And then just keeping in mind too, like there's a lot of uncertainty with, this COVID stuff that's happening too right now, and we're not sure what's going to happen out of this or anything like that. So try to reframe your mind on things you can control. For example, this might be like, while I can't control the situation around me, I can control my actions. I can do deep breathing, calling loved ones, getting proper sleep and nutrition. If you're religious, maybe doing some prayer or doing activities at home that you enjoy and love to do. And then here on this side, we just have like things that we can't control. So we can't control the actions of others. We can't control or predict what will happen, how others will react, things like this. These are things we can't control. So we can let go of these things and then rather focus in on the things we can control, really kind of focusing in on things like my positive attitude, limiting my social media, being kind and gracious to others and yourself during times like this, and even finding fun things to do at home are great things that we can control and do for ourselves that will kind of pull back some of that control.
Yeah, so like Samantha mentioned, one thing that we can control is doing activities that bring you joy. That can really look like anything, and it's really vastly different for every person, but examples are maybe cooking or baking, and you might have more time now, or during breaks from school to do those kinds of things. Maybe you're artistic and like to do that, so painting or drawing or something like that. cleaning and organizing your living space. Maybe you really like working in a place that's neat and tidy, so doing that can help bring you joy to do other activities. Taking a bubble bath or a long shower can bring you joy. Dressing up to make yourself feel good. Spending time outside, if that brings you joy. Spending time with pets if you have them, maybe going on walks, playing fetch, those kinds of things. Taking on home projects, if you like renovating the area or your space, trying to find projects that you can do that might also be art, to hang up in your living space. Start doing yoga or any new activity that you wanted to start. Could be a good time to start that to see if that sparks joy in you. Reading a book, writing in a journal, or another new thing that you could try, starting a garden. Summer's coming up, it's springtime, great time to do that. Those are just a few examples of things that bring certain people joy, but it also can be much more than these options on this page. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of our presentation about dealing with roommate conflicts. Thank you for watching.